Imagine standing on the shores of Maine as the sun rises over the Atlantic, the scent of salt water filling the air. Now, picture a time when the only sounds you heard were the waves crashing and the rhythmic drumbeats of the indigenous peoples who called this land home. From the rugged coasts of the Northeast to the balmy shores of Florida, the East Coast of the United States was once a thriving landscape of rich culture, spirituality, and resilience among Native American tribes. Yet beneath the beauty of their way of life lies a history marked by hardship, survival, and adaptation. The vibrant cultures of the Northeast. Before European contact, the Wabanaki Confederacy, comprised of the Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Abenaki nations, dominated the northern reaches of the East Coast, especially in Maine. These tribes lived harmoniously with the land, relying on hunting, fishing, and gathering to sustain their communities. Canoes carved from birch trees cut through rivers as they traded with neighboring tribes, while intricate beadwork and basket weaving reflected a deep connection to nature and artistry. Further south, the Algonquin-speaking tribes, including the Powhatan in what is now Virginia, thrived on agriculture, cultivating corn, beans, and squash, known as the Three Sisters. These crops provided the backbone of their diet and sustained vast networks of trade. Life revolved around the seasons and cycles of nature, with the Algonquin people developing sophisticated knowledge of the land. Spirituality permeated their existence, as every river, mountain, and forest held meaning. However, their peaceful existence was disrupted by the arrival of European settlers in the early 1600s, leading to centuries of conflict and displacement. The Southeastern tribes and their rich traditions. As we move farther down the East Coast, we encounter the Southeastern tribes, such as the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, and Choctaw. These tribes inhabited the fertile lands from the Carolinas to Florida and developed highly organized societies. The Cherokee in particular were renowned for their complex political structures and the written syllabary developed by Sequoyah, which allowed them to preserve their language and stories. The Seminole of Florida, a melting pot of various tribes and African fugitives, are well known for their fierce resistance against U.S. government forces during the Seminole Wars. Their ability to adapt to the swampy landscapes of the Everglades and use guerrilla tactics in combat demonstrated their determination to protect their land and way of life. Despite their cultural richness, these tribes suffered under the policies of European colonization and later the U.S. government. The Indian Removal Act of 1830, which culminated in the infamous Trail of Tears, forced many southeastern tribes from their ancestral lands, leading to immense loss of life, land, and cultural identity. Indigenous wisdom and ways of life. Lessons for today. The indigenous peoples of the East Coast from Maine to Florida embody a deep respect for the environment and community. Their sustainable agricultural practices, use of natural resources, and communal living systems are lessons that modern society can draw from. Their art, music, and spiritual beliefs were woven into everyday life, creating a culture of resilience and connection to the world around them. They saw the earth as a living entity, with every tree, animal, and waterway having a role in the balance of life. Yet it would be incomplete to tell the story without acknowledging the tremendous challenges they faced. Colonialism brought disease, violence, and displacement, with entire cultures forced to adapt or perish. Their struggle for survival led to incredible stories of endurance, but also deep loss of land, language, and lives. The dark side of colonization. The arrival of European settlers marked the beginning of one of the darkest chapters for Native American tribes along the East Coast. The introduction of diseases like smallpox and measles decimated populations who had no natural immunity. Violent conflicts arose as settlers encroached on indigenous lands, and treaties were broken time and time again. Tribes were forced into reservations, and their traditional ways of life were slowly erased through forced assimilation policies, including the removal of children to boarding schools where they were forbidden from speaking their languages or practicing their customs. The cultural genocide that occurred left scars that still resonate today. Many Native American communities continue to fight for the recognition of their rights, the return of their lands, and the preservation of their cultures in a world that once sought to destroy them. A resilient legacy. Despite centuries of adversity, Native American tribes on the East Coast continue to keep their traditions alive. Language revitalization programs, powwows, and renewed connections to ancestral lands are all part of a larger movement to reclaim what was lost. The wisdom of Indigenous peoples offers profound insights for contemporary issues such as environmental sustainability, community building, and spiritual well-being. As we reflect on this rich and complex history, we must ask ourselves, how can we honor the legacy of the Indigenous peoples who shaped this land while also confronting the painful truths of the past? Memorable quotes and a thought-provoking question. Our land is everything to us. I will tell you one of the things we remember on our land. We remember that our grandfathers paid for it with their lives. John Woodenleg's Northern Cheyenne. The Holy Land is everywhere. Black Elk, Oglala Lakota. When the earth is sick, the animals will begin to disappear. When that happens, the warriors of the rainbow will come to save them. Chief Seattle. As we look to the future, how can we better understand and integrate the values of balance, respect for nature, and community that have sustained Native American cultures for millennia into our modern lives? This question not only invites introspection, but challenges us to learn from the past as we move forward.